Most people believe Jeffrey Epstein was the scandal. A single man, a single network, a single moment of exposure. They believe that when he was arrested, when his name became toxic, when he died behind bars, the story ended. But that belief is comforting and dangerously wrong. Because history does not collapse because of one man. History collapses because of systems. Systems that don't panic when individuals fall, systems that don't shatter under outrage, systems that quietly absorb scandal and continue operating exactly as designed. And in 2025, something unsettling has happened. Jeffrey Epstein is no longer just a name from the past. He's become evidence in the present. Hundreds of photos, financial records, legal documents, released to the public under pressure from new transparency laws. And then quietly some of them disappeared. Images were redacted, pages were pulled back, entire files vanished after release, some involving people at the very top of global power. And suddenly, Epstein wasn't history anymore. He was a live test of whether truth can survive power. Tonight, this isn't about what Jeffrey Epstein did. It's about what his estate reveals about how power protects itself right now, while the world is watching. Hey, I'm Mike. Welcome back to the channel, where we uncover the hidden forces shaping history, power, and money. Every video here reveals something most people never notice. If you love discovering the truths others overlook, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Now let's go back, because this story didn't begin with a crime. It began with architecture. Before the fall. How power plans for exposure. Jeffrey Epstein did not invent elite protection. He inherited a system that already existed, long before his name ever reached the public. Epstein operated inside a financial and legal universe designed for one purpose: survival after scandal. Trusts that separate ownership from identity. Private foundations that blur intent. Offshore entities that fracture jurisdiction. Legal complexity that turns outrage into paperwork. To ordinary people, these structures look like technicalities. To history, they are armor. Every empire that endured corruption for too long relied on the same principle: never let power rest in one visible place. Rome did this through layered bureaucracy. Medieval monarchies did it through divine legitimacy. Modern elites do it through legal abstraction. Epstein wasn't reckless. He was prepared. And that preparation would matter far more than anything he ever said or did. 2. The rise. Influence without authority. Epstein's power did not come from holding office. He commanded no army, passed no laws. Instead, he occupied a more dangerous position. He was a bridge between finance and politics, between academia and intelligence, between philanthropy and private indulgence. History shows that bridges are where power hides best. Because bridges don't command, they connect. Money opened doors. Doors created silence. Silence became protection. And as Epstein's access grew, so did the complexity around his assets. It's not to hide crime, but to make accountability negotiable. This is how influence survives exposure. It's not by denial, but by diffusion. 3. The moment everyone expected collapse. When Epstein was arrested, the public expected a familiar arc: exposure, investigation, confiscation, justice. This is how stories are supposed to end. But history rarely follows the script people expect. Legal processes slowed, responsibility fragmented, jurisdiction blurred, and then Epstein died. The moment that was supposed to close the chapter, instead, it revealed the real story. Because when the man disappeared, the system didn't. The estate remained intact. And that's when the uncomfortable truth emerged. Epstein wasn't the power center. He was a node. 4. The estate wealth that outlived the scandal. In most historical collapses, disgrace makes wealth vulnerable. But Epstein's estate behaved differently. Assets didn't automatically fall into public hands. Trusts created legal distance. Offshore entities complicated enforcement. Time diluted outrage. This wasn't a loophole. It was design. Elite systems understand something the public rarely considers. Anger is intense, but short-lived. Complexity is boring and permanent. And as attention faded, the estate endured. Not because people didn't care, Because modern power doesn't rely on public approval. It relies on endurance. V. Institutional silence. When accountability dissolves, what made Epstein's estate truly revealing wasn't just the money. It was the silence. Institutions moved cautiously. Statements were carefully worded. Investigations narrowed. No single authority carried full responsibility. And when responsibility is shared too widely, it effectively disappears. History shows us something critical. When justice becomes selective, trust erodes quietly, not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. Rome experienced this long before collapse. So did France before revolution. So did every empire that mistook stability for legitimacy. And this is where the story stops being historical, because in 2025, the estate returned. Massive batches of Epstein-related materials were released. Photos, financial logs, legal records. The public was told this was progress, and then something strange happened. Parts of the release vanished. Images involving powerful individuals were removed. Pages were heavily redacted. Some files were pulled entirely after publication. Lawmakers began fighting openly over what should remain visible. This wasn't chaos, it was a negotiation. Between institutions and influence, between truth and between what transparency promises and what power permits. And the world watched. 7. The pattern reveals itself. This is not a legal anomaly. It's a historical pattern. Late-stage systems always behave the same way. Wealth concentrates, legal complexity shields elites. Moral decay hides behind order, and truth becomes procedural. Epstein's estate didn't invent this. It exposed it in real time. Not through crowns or palaces, but through redactions, delays, and selective visibility. And if this analysis resonates with you, this is exactly the kind of hidden history we uncover here. So take a moment to like the video, share it, and subscribe. It helps this channel stay independent, and it helps these stories reach people who rarely hear them. 8th, why this matters more than ever. People often ask how systems collapse. They imagine invasions, wars, market crashes. Collapse begins earlier. When institutions stop serving justice and start serving continuity, when accountability becomes optional, when consequences become negotiable, when truth becomes layered in procedure instead of clarity. Epstein's estate is not the cause of decline, it's the symptom. A warning encoded in legal silence. 9. Final reflection. The lesson power never learns. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes. Every empire that believed it was too complex to fail. Every system that thought insulation meant immortality eventually learned the same lesson. Power that protects itself too well eventually protects nothing at all. And here's the question that remains. If exposure no longer threatens power, what does? If you want more stories like this, stories that connect the past, the present, and the hidden mechanics of power, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because history doesn't whisper, it leaves warnings. And whether we listen, is the part still undecided?